Hey, I want to welcome you to the first of our video series, Open the Book. And the first little sort of book of the Bible I want to look at is 1 John. A little letter from John, one of Jesus' closest friends, and one of the sort of key disciples. And we're just going to look at 4 verses just at the beginning of his letter here and see what he has to say. It's a great little letter. I love the way that John writes. He's lovely to read, even still there in the English. He writes in a way that none of the other writers quite write in the New Testament. He's great to read. And just as we read these verses and look through them, just 2 sort of questions, 2 points just to sort of bear in mind here, and I've got them up here, is that I think he's going to address for us. And that's, what's the gospel? What is the good news of Jesus? What is that? What's its kind of nature? And secondly, what's its purpose? What does it do? What's the result of it? And that's the 2 points really here that John will cover in his introduction. You'll notice it's not really a typical sort of letter introduction. Let's get straight into it here. Let's read this. So this is 1 John chapter 1, verses 1 to 4. That which was from the beginning, which we've heard, which we've seen with our eyes, which we looked upon and have touched with our hands, concerning the word of life. The life was made manifest, and we've seen it and testified to it, and proclaimed to you the eternal life, which was with the Father and was made manifest to us. That which we've seen and heard, we proclaim also to you, so that you too may have fellowship with us. And indeed, our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. And we're writing these things so that our joy may be complete. So let's have a little look now into these verses in a little closer detail here. So let's just look at that first verse for now. That which was from the beginning, which we've heard, which we've seen with our eyes, which we've looked upon and have touched with our hands, concerning the word of life, also to you. Let's just look at that first bit there, because John is saying so much here. Let's just look at a couple of things here. Look at this. He says, that which was from the beginning. And if you've ever read John's gospel, so John, as well as his 3 letters here and the letter of Revelation, also writes a gospel. If you've ever read the beginning of John's gospel, it'll begin in a really similar way, where he'll talk about Jesus as being the Word who was from the beginning. And what he means in saying that is, he existed. He's always lived from the beginning. One of the things that's different about John's gospel is that rather than having a genealogy of all his kind of earthly, paternal relatives, as the other gospel writers do, John wants to make the point, which is equally true because he's human and he does have that human lineage. But John wants to make the point, actually, Jesus always was from the beginning. That Jesus wasn't created at the point that he was birthed, but he's fleshed in a human body at that point, but he's always existed in eternity. So what is the gospel? Well, one of the things is, it's about this God who always was from the beginning. That's number 1. Let's just put that there, number 1. And then look at how he continues here. And now these next few points are all going to connect. That which we have heard, which we have seen, which we've looked upon and have touched. And these all connect. These are all senses. There you go. It's a bit difficult to write here with, I haven't got an actual pen, I'm just using the mouse. These are all senses. What he's wanting to say is here, we were witnesses. We've heard it. We've seen him. We touched him. The gospel is about this person who was from the beginning, who we've heard, who we've seen, who we've touched. Jesus, namely. But he's saying here, he's like a witness statement. I've heard him, I've seen him, I've touched him. Concerning the word of life. And, at the beginning of his gospel, he's used that said it a little earlier on, that he's used that way of talking of Jesus, that he's the Word. He's a word of life. He's the one that brings people to life. He holds people in life, who we've heard, who we've seen, who we've touched. Really important little points that John is making there. Let's continue, because he carries on that thought here. The life, that is the word of life that he's just finished talking about, was made manifest. That was that thing I was talking about there, that he always was from the beginning. He wasn't created, but he was made clear. God was wrapped in flesh. He was made clear. And John talks about Jesus making God kind of knowable and understandable. He's made manifest. And again, he's going to say, we've seen it and we testify to it and proclaim to you. That's how he sees himself, that we there. That's how John sees himself, that he's seen it, he's testifying to it, and he's proclaiming it to you. That's his job. That he's seen it, he's testifying it, he's proclaiming it to us. What is it? Well, and what is the purpose of the gospel? Well, here's the first thing that it is. It's eternal life. There it is. In his gospel, John records Jesus saying that God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that man may not perish, but have eternal life, that we might be forgiven, that we might be reconciled to God the Father, and that we might find eternal life. So that's one of the purposes. So let's put that there. Let's put purpose number 1. I'm quite slow with writing this. There we go. Purpose number 1, eternal life. And again, like his gospel, he's going to say, which was with the Father and was made manifest. Again there, he's coming back to that point. Made manifest to us. And he's going to then just remind us again, he's going to use the same language, that which we've seen, heard, proclaim. We proclaim to you. So purpose number 1 there of the gospel, eternal life. That's not going to be the only one. He's going to come to 2 more, but that's the first one there that he gives us. And he gives us an insight into what Jesus has done. He's made God manifest. He's made him clear. He's made him understandable in a way in which he wasn't before. He talks about God being unseen, unknowable, so great that you just simply can't fathom him. So one famous theologian put it one time that, God is that which no greater than can be conceived of, which is a great way of explaining God, that your very greatest thought, he's better than and can't be contained by. But also it's quite a disappointing thought, because it really doesn't tell you too much more about who God really is. Jesus makes God manifest. He makes him clear. He shows what God really looks like. He looks like Jesus because he's his Son. Now we see a bit more of the purpose that John has here as we come into these last couple of verses here. So that you two may have fellowship with us. That's purpose number 2. Purpose number 1 was to have eternal life. And that related to God, that being reconciled to him, you can have eternal life as it was always intended before sin came into the world and disrupted that. And now through Jesus, that has been restored and redeemed and reconciled so that we may have eternal life. But purpose number 2 is that you may have fellowship. Purpose number 2 there. You could put it perhaps community. Oh dear, I can't write very well with the mouse, but there you go. Hopefully you can just about see. There we go. Community with us. It brings people together. People from all sorts of different backgrounds and histories and personalities brought together by knowing Jesus. So that you two may have fellowship with us. And indeed, our fellowship is with the Father. There we go. That's important too. Our fellowship is with the Father. That's how it happens. We are brought together into fellowship because we have fellowship with the Father. That's how it happens. What unites us, though being different and from different places and all sorts of different stories, is our shared story of finding the love of the Father in Jesus. Is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus. So those two are together. Purpose number 1 was eternal life. Purpose number 2 was a community with God and with one another. And then verse 4 here says, and we are writing these things so that our joy may be complete. There we go. That's purpose number 3. Joy. There's something about the gospel, the message, the ministry, the life of Jesus that is at its very core about joy, that you might find your joy in him by being put in community with the Father and with him and with one another, and then also you may find eternal life. So John says so much here, just in these short little verses here. You know, the gospel here is something that he's bearing witness to, as if he's in court. And he's saying here, you know, this is true. This is what I've seen. This is what I've heard. This is what I've touched. I'm telling you what I've really experienced. This isn't a story I've come up with. I'm telling you something that I have come in contact with. Here is the God who has always existed, and now he has made himself clear in Jesus. He's shown us what it looks like. And now here's the purpose of it, that you may have eternal life, that you may be saved from sin, saved from hell, to know God in all his fullness, and to have eternal life on a new, restored and redeemed, recreated earth. That you may be in community, both with God, the Father and the Son and the Spirit, and with one another, with his people. You may find true community that brings people together. And thirdly, that you may find joy. I hope that's been helpful. We'll come back and we'll consider those next few verses next time. What's the purpose of the gospel there? Well, or what is the gospel? Sorry, firstly, it's a true event. It's true history here that he's saying, I've seen, I've heard, I've touched. What's its purpose? Eternal life, community, and joy. Thanks for taking time to be with us. Hope it's been helpful. I hope you'll be back next time.